Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar about assessing agility with Agile IQ. My name is Matthew Hodgson. I'm the CEO of Xenex Machina. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Agile IQ, it's part of our 2025 mission to improve the working lives of teams all the way through to executives. And this automates Agile assessment and coaching to deliver faster, more consistent outcomes to enterprises. It identifies issues with delivery performance, empowers leaders to intervene, and more importantly, to make agility transparent. So how does it work? It assesses agile mindset, culture, and behaviors. It provides customized, curated coaching recommendations based on that assessment, and then provides reports on not only where teams are up to, but also what to do next. Importantly, it's based on the Agile Manifesto, Scrum Guide, values and behaviours to an Agile capability, and aligns with evidence-based metrics. How we created Agile IQ was to collect data over 5 years, including teams over themselves over a number of years. Looked at large-scale organisations, a number of different organisations, and importantly, software and non-software teams. The data comes from that you'll be comparing yourselves to is agnostic of the work that the teams do. So it's not about software. You can use the same questions, and we have at Xenex Machina to assess and look at HR, data management, legal, digital marketing, a whole range of different kinds of teams. The results that you'll get out of Agile IQ will reflect on behaviours like self-organisation, Agile values, but also, are the teams sprinting? Do they have short work cycles? And importantly, are they engaging in continuous improvement? Kind of factors that we see out of that, and you're able to get reports from, but also to understand where and what kinds of coaching recommendations that you'll get aligned to these kinds of areas. What's your Agile leadership like? What's your ability to manage products with agility? What about developing people and teams or evolving the Agile organization? Ability to pivot and change, delivery risk, all of these are areas that Agile IQ will provide you with a perspective on. So the first thing that I do when I'm looking, before I go and do an assessment of a team, these are the kinds of things I'm looking for. I'm looking for strong evidence, strong behaviours throughout, in particular, how they conduct their events. What I'm looking for is empiricism. Every opportunity, particularly in Scrum, is an opportunity to inspect something and adapt. So I'm looking for evidence of empiricism, not just meetings or showcases or doing demos. Things like, are they actively improving? Well, how do you know? Where is that evidence? I'll go inside their TFS or their Jira boards, and I'll start looking for things like, are they actively improving? So are they taking action items out of their retrospectives, and are they putting those into their next sprints? Do we see, as a result, do we see things like cycle time data decrease? Do we see the engagement of stakeholders increase? What about their satisfaction? What kinds of evidence are you seeing of improvement, and where? That's what I go looking for. Are there the items in their backlogs, their product backlog items, are they just design, build, test? Are their boards, their increments every sprint, their work increments, there's the sprint backlog, are these transparent? Does it reflect what they're doing at any point in time? And importantly, what does their product backlog look like? These are things that I do when I'm going into and preparing to do an assessment with Agile IQ. So I want to show you, give you a live demonstration of Agile IQ. So the team I'm going to do an assessment on right now is a team that's working on a CRM platform. They've been working with in agile ways for about 6 months. They're a Scrum team, and they say themselves that they're strongly agile. So let's go through the assessment and actually see what the assessment says, and importantly, then how their data reflects other teams that are also about the 6-month age. So when I start an assessment, immediately what we'll come up with is the initial data that you put in that describes this team. And all I really need to do at this point in time is to confirm that the data has things changed since the last assessment. So we have things like what's the organisation, their team name, how many people, is it still the same? When was the starting point of when they adopted Agile? Is their Scrum Master full-time, part-time, etc.? And how many teams? Reflecting on the evidence that I saw, the evidence of behaviour, and now I have to look at whether or not, based on the statements that are presented, whether I strongly agree, or strongly disagree, slightly disagree, etc. And that's what these little things are for. It's a 6-point Likert scale, so there is no middle of neither agree or disagree. Basically, this is asking you the question of, do you see the behaviour or not? If you do see the behaviour, then you want to put it on the agree side. If you haven't seen the behaviour, you want to be putting it on the disagree side. If you have never seen the behaviour, the team don't talk about it, and you can't infer the behaviour, then you want to put the response on the strongly disagree side. If you actually have seen this, you've seen it a lot, and this team have been doing this particular behaviour a lot, you want to err towards the strongly agree side. So let's see with this first one. Scrum Master helps the product owner with techniques for effective backlog management. We know that from the Scrum Guide, part of the Scrum Master's job is actually to help with product management, helping the product owner with effective techniques to do that. So for this particular team, I've actually seen quite a lot of engagement between the Scrum Master and the product owner. But I don't see it all the time. I see most of the time the Scrum Master's focus tends to be more on the development team themselves, almost like a team lead. So I'm going to put in this, I'm going to put agree, I'm going to put it on that point. So next question, Scrum Master helps the team understand the need for clear and concise backlog items. So I've seen the Scrum Master do that a lot with the product owner, with the development team, particularly in sprint planning and backlog refinement. So I'm going to put it there. Scrum Master promotes teams to be cross-functional. So do they have all of the skills that they need? Well, I've seen the Scrum Master talk about it a little bit, but the team, even at 6 months, I found that they're still focused on, I'm a developer, I'm a tester, I'm a QA, I'm an architect, and they still tend to be a little bit functionally siloed. So I'm going to put it on the slightly agree side. Okay. Do the leaders around the team help them to be self-organizing? Well, I see team leads occasionally come in and try to dictate to the product owner the kind of work that they think that they should be doing, and even going directly to team members themselves. So I'm going to put slightly agree. Doesn't happen all the time, but I have seen it a few. Do these leaders work directly through the backlog if they want something done? Not really. They kind of go up to team members themselves. So I'm going to put disagree. Scrum Master helps the product owner create an environment of empirical planning. Well, they don't really focus on empiricism in terms of inspection and adaptation with their events just yet. So I'm going to put slightly disagree. The focus isn't on empiricism. Scrum Master helps the product owner know how to arrange the backlog to optimize value. Well, at the moment, they still talk about deliverables. They're not really talking about value yet. So I'm going to actually put disagree. Does it happen? It might happen, but I haven't ever seen any real evidence of it. Is the Scrum Master helping the product owner understand practice agility? No, not really. His focus is ultimately on the development team. So I'm going to leave it on strongly disagree. Does the Scrum Master embody principles of the Agile Manifesto? A little bit. So I'm going to put slightly agree. Scrum Master facilitates effective events. Well, the events are certainly effective in creating a plan, but not all of the events are effective, particularly in terms of continuous improvement, inspection, and adaptation. So I'm going to put slightly agree in this. Is the Scrum Master coaching the team to be self-organizing? A little bit, but because of the impact of leaders on this team, I'm going to put slightly agree. Is Scrum Master helping the team to create high-value products? Yep. But again, it's mainly on work and on functional based work. I'm just going to put slightly agree. Scrum Master helps the team to remove impediments. Well, whilst this particular Scrum Master certainly is asking about impediments, he doesn't help the team to actually remove them themselves, importantly to self-organise. So I'm going to put slightly disagree. His focus is not right in that instance. Is the Scrum Master coaching the team in good Scrum? Yeah, I'm going to put agree there. Scrum Master leads and coaches the business. Well, not really. He's only engaged, his focus is on the development team, a little bit on the product owner, but the rest of the organisation, no. So I'm going to leave it at strongly disagree. Scrum Master helps stakeholders understand Scrum? No, his focus isn't there. And his focus certainly isn't helping on stakeholders to understand how to best optimise their interaction with product development. Is the Scrum Master catalysing change that improves productivity? I'm going to put a little bit, I've seen a little bit of based on their TFS board, I've seen a little bit of trends velocity trends that indicate their productivity is slightly increasing. So I'm going to leave it there. Are leaders around the team helping to optimize decision making? Are they basically trying to help the team be self-organizing? Not really. So I'm going to put disagree. Are they applying batch theory? No. They still tend to have quite large pieces of work in their sprints. Is the Scrum Master working with other Scrum Masters? No. Is the Scrum Master helping the team to self-organize, identify waste? Now, this is a question that kind of comes from Lean. Are they doing any work that actually doesn't add value? Well, it's not even occurring to the Scrum Master at the moment. It's not on his radar, so I'm going to leave it there. Are leaders, when they want to know something, do they go to the team? The answer is no. They sit back and they ask for reports, so I'm going to leave it there, as well as leaders promoting Kaizen. The leaders around this particular team, their mindset isn't really yet on how do I actually support the teams. They're still in a traditional kind of command and control. So I'm going to leave that one on strongly disagree. Leaders give the team the environment that they need. Do they trust them to get the job done? Yeah, a little bit. But if they trusted them more, I'd expect them to see them promoting self-organization and saying, here's the problem, you go and solve it. So I'm going to put slightly agree there. Are leaders helping to maintain consistency? Well, they are now. They've just started to realise that every time they mess with a team's composition, the team's delivery slows down. They've got to kind of get used to these new people and work out how to work actually as a team again. So I'm going to put that on slightly agree. Are leaders demonstrating the ability to be agile? No. And are they minimising the effect of unplanned work? I'm going to put slightly agree. They tend to go, as I said, to individuals. Actually, no, based on that, I'm going to put slightly disagree. They tend to go straight to individuals, not really working through the product owner. So I'll put that there. Are they planning the sprint collaboratively? Yep. Do they have clear sprint goals? Sometimes. They're still focused on deliverables and not kind of a goal for the whole sprint. So I'm going to leave it there. Team applies definition of done. Yes, they do. The product owner is actually pretty good at asking questions to feel confident that an item does meet the definition of done. Their velocity is pretty stable. They do use it for forecasting. The sprint can certainly be assessed about what, in relation to what can be delivered. Do they assess how they'll work to achieve their sprint goal? And yes. Is the team's sprint backlog always up to date? Mostly. Do they add to the sprint backlog as they learn more? Not really. They still, as I said before, they still think in terms of deliverables. So I'm going to put slightly disagree. Because a good Scrum team, because they're focused on a goal, as they learn more, they'll adapt their plan. And the sprint backlog is reflective of their plan at any point in time. Remember, a daily Scrum is about inspecting the goal, what's our progress towards the goal, and adapting the sprint backlog. So a team undertakes backlog refinement. Yeah, they do, but probably it's not terribly effective. And some of their work is kind of rolled over. They go, oh, well, we didn't deliver it, so we're going to put it into the next sprint, without really actually giving it to the product owner and say, product owner, do you really want this in the next sprint or not? The team's work is optimized for small batch sizes. Remember, it's not on the Scrum Master's backlog, kind of on his radar. He's not thinking in terms of that yet. So I'm going to leave it there. Do they always achieve their sprint goals? Look, if they were really focused on goals, then I'd say strongly agree. So I'm just going to leave it at agree at this point. I'd like to see them focus on sprint goals and going, what does it take to achieve it, over just thinking about it as deliverables. No changes are made to the sprint that would endanger the sprint goal. They don't tend to make changes, but they don't think about the sprint goal either. So I'm going to leave it there. Fortunately, they've never extended their sprint boundaries ever, which is really good, which just helps create consistency. They pretty much know now what they can deliver sprint to sprint. Does only the team change the sprint backlog? I'm not going to put strongly agree for this one, because for this team, they still have managers coming to them and really trying to influence that. So it doesn't always happen. So I'm going to put just agree. Quality goals don't change, which is really lovely. Is the scope of the work clarified and reclarified? This is not really a conversation that this team is ready to have yet. So I'm going to leave it at strongly disagree. Do they review their increment, or are they doing demos and showcases? Realistically, at this point in time, because the Scrum Master and the product owner aren't really engaged with their stakeholders, they tend to just do a demo of working software to their product owner, but they're not collaboratively inspecting the increment and adapting the backlog. That's not how they think just yet. So I'm going to put slightly agree. Do they hold retrospectives? Yes, they do. And they certainly reflect on how to improve, but they tend to just focus on process, not practices and people and their interactions, etc. So I'm just going to put agree. Is the team size optimized? Yes. Do they assess work in terms of like value, or that's kind of how we always do it? There's still a little bit of that's how we always do it. But remember, they don't think about sprint goals, they don't often think about value. So that's where I'm going to leave that there. Are they focused on individuals and interactions over tools and processes? They still love their tools, and they tend to focus on tools and process. So in about 6 months, I'm just going to put slightly agree. Are they focusing on delivery of the product over detailed documentation? Yes. They're still a little bit obsessed with, again, the term requirements, and requirements in this very traditional sense of we documented everything at the solution before we start work. So I'm going to leave it at agree. It's almost there, but not quite. Do they make reference back to the Agile Manifesto? No, they don't. Their focus is on kind of still doing Scrum, not really thinking about those making decisions about the principles in the Agile Manifesto. And so I'm going to believe this and both this other one about principles at no. Are they focused on responding to change or following a plan? Mostly it's create the plan and deliver it. Are they helping other teams to deliver value by helping others? Not really. Again, batch size, no. Are they self-organizing? Tasks aren't delegated. Look, because of that influence of managers that I said before, I'm going to put it on slightly agree. Is it cross-functional? Do they rely on people outside of the team? Mostly, the people that they engage with frequently are architects, user experience professionals, things like that. So I'm going to put it on there. I'd really love for the team to be able to deliver themselves without having kind of that influence, but I'm going to leave it there. Do they promote sustainable pace? Yeah, they're kind of at a pace now at 6 months where they could deliver at this pace continuously. Are they self-organizing? Do they define their own solutions? Mostly, but people outside of the team that do design tend to expect that their design is going to be delivered verbatim. There's some pushback and some support from management. So I'm going to put it on there. Do they rely on face-to-face communication? This is straight from the Agile Manifesto, the principles. And what I find most interesting is that people interpret it literally, like physical face-to-face. And this team is now not collocated, they're using Zoom, but they've realized that having opportunities to actually do face-to-face, even via digital methods like this, is actually really effective. And they do it all the time. So I'm going to put strongly agree. Are there items iterated through the sprint? or do they just split it into phases of activity? I'm going to put agree. Some of their thinking is still design, build, test, but most of their items are described quite well like this. So I'm going to put agree. Is there any hierarchy? Look, there's still hierarchy. Do they not create sub-teams? There's still a little bit of that, but mostly they're focused on doing it as a team. Do they inspect and adapt their last sprint? Yes, they do, all the time. And do they identify the items that they want to improve? This needs work. They kind of talk about it in general. They decide on actions. They don't tend to carry it out. So this one is this one. I'm going to put slightly agree. Is it visible and transparent in terms of their work? Actually, it's pretty good. And do they visualize their work in progress? Absolutely, they do. All right, so last one. Are they refactoring? Old templates, patterns, process documentation, are they refactoring their code? Do they go back and look at it? No, they don't. So I'm going to leave it at strongly discrete. It's just not on their radar. What about the velocity? Is it improving? It is. Is there knowledge of their work? Yes, it is. What about the product and clients, etc.? They do know technically, and that's improving about the technical aspects of their product. But in terms of what does that mean about the experience that they're creating, the value that they're creating for their customers? Not really. So I'm going to put it on slightly agree. Do they think about, and more widely, do managers think about how long it takes for work to happen? In terms of, does a manager make a decision, or does the team to make decisions? Do they think about decision making in terms of bottlenecks? No, again, it's not on their radar. Are team members looking at this? There was a discussion about it last week around cross-skilling and an identification that the person doing the testing work was becoming the bottleneck for some things. So I'm going to put slightly agree for this one. Are they using metrics for flow? No, they're not yet. They're not looking at Toyota Carter, and they certainly don't look at metrics, particularly in retrospective. They're still focused on crowdsourcing opinion, and they're making a decision on that. So are there, is satisfaction of team stakeholders improving? That's, again, not on their radar. Are they actively sharing with other teams? No. Are they always identifying waste? No. Do they remove it? No. Are they contributing more broadly to their team's, other teams' agility? No. Again, metrics, teamwork, being transparent isn't used for decision making. So I'm going to leave all of these at disagree. So that's the assessment. You'll notice that took about 20 minutes, and really that kind of thinking is really all that's needed. So we can see here that we've got self-organisation of 54%. I'm just going to write these down on a Sharpie. The Sharpie, 43 for agile values, continuous improvement is 41, and sprinting is 31. And you'll see here, because I've got a coaching assessment subscription for this for my tablet, it also shows me the sub-factors, and I can see that breakdown. I can also share that. And I'll send it to myself. And I can have a look at that directly. Did that come up? Let's try that again. Okay, there we go. So this gives us a really lovely breakdown of some areas of recommendation and behaviours to encourage. So it says the area for focus should be spring at this point in time. And it says teams at this level of maturity are focused on learning and advanced patterns and practices to add to the team's way of working. And we saw some of that in the in responses to the question. Are they doing good Scrum? Yes, but are they adding other things to help make their delivery more effective? And the answers were no. So this gives us our ultimate breakdown of where to focus. I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm just going to go back so we can wrap up. So we saw that, and this is coming with the development team is actually starting to build this now. We saw that their self-organisation for that team was 54, and the team are at about a 6-month mark. And you can see here that the in terms of self-organisation, you go across from 6 months, but the teams that are about 6-month mark, the average is about 50. So this team's a little bit higher than that average. For Agile values, the mean is 49. Their score was 43, so they're a little bit behind. For Agile values, continuous improvement 49, and you can see sprinting was 34. So a little bit behind in terms of where they could be. And that's in terms of their overall Agile IQ. What was it? It was 100. And 100 puts them, you can see there at the competence stage. They've gone beyond beginners and they're starting to apply additional frameworks. And so the recommendations are all around how to strengthen now that your practice, now that you've got the basics down pat. So again, the kind of in the middle, around about discipline of becoming disciplined as an Agile team. And I'll skip through this part. The kinds of recommendations, and you'll see this in our next seminar, around about how do I, if they're actually at strengthening, what are the behaviours, actions and learning objectives to now give them. And of course at about 100, the enterprise moreover is going to start to see about $1.5 million if, like, for a team of teams of up to 10. In terms of our roadmap, what you're going to see soon are around, we've done work agnostic questions. We're now going into Power BI and comparisons. You'll see comparisons come out early next month, and moving into software as a service program level comparisons. And if you're not part of our Agile Early Adopter program, I encourage you to go and jump on and participate. You'll get full access to all of these features as well. And next webinar, which is on the 14th of September, this is what we're going to do. Looking at, now that we've done an assessment, what areas should we start coaching? What are the recommendations? What does it say about stages of Agile, like capability, maturity, and the recommendations? So that's it. Thank you very much for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you in our next webinar.